Hi, Sai Karate Illuminati, this is Noah, and today I wanted to go over a couple of bagwork drills that I do with the belt tied with the ends together like this, so you have a loop. I did these two drills as part of my rounds for a collaborative bagwork training session that was put on recently with a variety of different instructors who I will have to list for you guys. It was great fun, it was good training, and I was going to break this down a little bit more in detail so that everyone who wasn't there can take a look at it and try it out at home, and everyone who was there can get a little bit of a refresher. So you start here with the hands inside the loop that you've made with the belt. This is essentially the same as having your hands kind of inside of somebody's guard, or while you're sort of grappling with the bicep grips this way. And from here we're going to hook and pull down and then strike into the face with a double palm heel strike. This is very similar to the wedge you see at the beginning of Kusan Kudai. So we just hook and pull, strike in, and then we're going to shift to the 45 parry pass to clear their arms, and we're going to take a hold of their arm on the outside and strike. And this is where our hikite gets to come into play. We're pulling with this hand at the same time we're striking with this hand. Now, from there, you're just going to transition into other strikes. The key, though, is that the hand that isn't striking needs to maintain control of this limb. So we've hooked and pulled, we've struck into the face, we've cleared to the outside, we've gotten control of their arm, and we're using it to pull them into our strike, and then we can switch, And you can do this with any kind of strike that you want. From the clear, I like the straight punches, but straight punch maybe into a forearm, maybe into an elbow, it doesn't really matter. The goal here is to stick and follow along so that we can exchange our hands on the opponent's limb with our hikite, so that we're maintaining control of that as we strike. So that so far is hook and pull down, strike in, clear to the outside, strike one, exchange and strike two, exchange and strike three. Once we've done all three of those strikes, we should have the same hand that we struck with first toward the front. We're going to use that then to lock the opponent's arm. So this hand, whether you elbowed, forearm struck, punched, it doesn't matter, will scoop the opponent's elbow, and we're going to move this to the back. And as we move this to the back, we're going to fold our arm over. So this is effectively putting them into this position, in a hammer lock sort of position. This is a shoulder lock that can be used if you lever their arm away from their back to force their head down. So we hook down, strike in, clear to the outside. Strike, 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 scoop, and again, you do want to move this to the back. This is what you'd have to do to their arm if this were an actual person, to move it behind them to get it into the position you need, and fold your arm over. And when you do that, the belt should be in the crook of your elbow. If you just let it go, it'll fly off. And that's something that you need to train for a person as well. If you're not keeping this tight in the crook of your elbow, their arm could slip out as well. So this makes you have to focus on squeezing that belt in the crook of your elbow. It'll be easier to hold an arm than it will be the belt. So pull down, strike, clear, strike, 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 scoop, wrap. Now from here, they should be bent over, or at least starting to bend over. So we're going to throw this shot underneath at this point. Now, if they haven't bent over, then you're going to be drilling them in the liver or in the spleen, depending on which side you're on. And if they have bent over, that's their head. So we hook, strike, clear, strike, 1, 2, 3, and scoop to get us into the lock, and strike either the body or the head, depending on what target's available. The second drill, rather than ending with a joint lock, starts with one. So we start from the same place, and you can hook and strike to begin with as well. But when we clear to the outside, which we're still going to do, we're not going to shift our body, because that gives us space to strike, but it doesn't put us in a good position to lock. We want to lock in this case, so when we clear, we're actually going to shift toward the bag, toward the opponent. We're going to take away that space, and we're going to pull this arm so that it's pulled tight across the chest, and we can strike in with an elbow, or we can strike in with a hammer fist to the groin, at the same time as we pull their arm across the shoulder and chest. And what that should be doing is hyperextending the elbow across our body. This is a pretty high percentage elbow lock because there's not much finesse involved. Pull, make straight, shove shoulder forward, and strike back. This is going to look very similar to some motions that you might be familiar with from kata. So again, we can start with our hook and strike. We clear and shift in, taking away the space, pulling the belt or their arm tight across the chest and shoulder, locking it as we strike back, either, again, elbow or hammer fist. From this position though, we're probably not going to want to stay here. This can throw somebody over. We can knock them off balance and potentially throw them all the way to the ground. It could potentially break their arm. Great, but we're going to continue on from here. So we're using Kusankusho at this point. We're going to shift away and do this big circling hammer fist motion. And when we do that, we're going to change hands. So right now, I have it in my left hand. I'm going to swing up with this hand and pass their arm to my right hand. And from here, you can work your low kick in and your punch. Pretty straightforward. And this is very similar to things that you'd see in Kusankusho. At that point, once you're familiar and comfortable with that, again, you can play with the strikes at the end. So you've locked, cleared, kicked, struck. Maybe you want to start throwing in some other techniques. Then you can blend those two drills. So you can start clearing, hook, strike, enter with the lock, clear, kick, punch. But now I'm going to, as I switch hands on this limb, shift to the outside, and now I am in the same position I was in to do the shoulder lock and strike that we did in the first drill. And this is something that takes a little bit of getting used to because this doesn't have joints the way that a normal person does. So you do have to do a little bit of visualization on what you're intending to do here, but this gets you used to being in close, having limbs entangled with yours, and having to clear out of them, either to get to a striking situation or to get to a locking and throwing situation. This is just 2 examples, and there are obviously way more uses for a pseudo arm on a bag. But these are the 2 that I went over in our training session, and hopefully you guys find them useful.